Well, howdy ho everybody, and welcome back to Cousin Eddie's Mobile RV Repair, or Dan's Pro Shop. You get the point. Today, we are doing a little project that every RV owner should know how to do, because if you're paying the dealership, dude, just don't. Honestly, this is super easy. It's that time of the year. The leaves are changing, things are getting cold, especially up here in the old Keystone State. It's dipping down in the 30s at night already. Here we are in the beginning of October, it's getting cold. We need to winterize this thing. So, got us a couple gallons of pink stuff. We're gonna blow out the lines inside of this thing with air. Well, actually, I've already done that, but I'll walk you through it, I promise. And then we're gonna pump through the pink stuff. Make sure this thing doesn't blow up over the winter time. But if you're interested, stick around, grab a seat, let's do this. Well, campers, gather around and let me spit some knowledge at you. Now, keep in mind, this is just the procedure for my particular getup. Campers are all similar, but they all have their nuances. So your situation may be different, but I guarantee the process is very similar. This particular one is a 2022 KZ Sportsman 250 THSE, Toy Hauler Special Edition. There's not much special about it, I promise you. But either way, my water pump is in the pass-through storage thing here. So first thing we got to do is get in there and uncover everything and just get all of the... We'll get in there. So this thing here is the special little get-up I made for pneumatically pushing out all the water inside of there. It's pretty janky, but I'll show you what's up whenever we get there. So we get all this crud out of here. Depending upon how neat or messy or organized you are, this might be the worst part of this whole project, is just getting to everything you need to get to. But luckily, I was just in here not long ago, so this thing is already taken out. I'll bring ends in so you can actually see what's happening. All right, guys, so you can see here the water pump setup in my particular RV. We just got a 12-volt water pump here. There's a strainer on the suction side and a couple valves here that you may or may not be able to see. This guy in particular is the one that we're going to be wanting to focus on. Now, like I said, your situation may be different. Some already have this on, some don't. Sometimes you need to put the antifreeze in through the city water connection, but sometimes you got this thing and you can use that. Now this line tees off to another line on the suction side. So you can see here, there's another valve back there. I don't know, maybe you can see it, I don't know. But this one sucks water out of your freshwater tank. Well, naturally, we're done with that process. So like I ran the pump dry and got everything out from the faucets inside. So now we can close off that valve and we're gonna wanna open the other one. But before we get into the antifreeze thing, let me walk you through the air situation. Now, like I had briefly mentioned, it is a good practice to push the existing water out of your system before you do this. Now, I mean, you don't necessarily have to, but it makes this process go a lot faster if the lines are empty when you're filling with antifreeze. So, you would take your city water connection here, yins all got them, you know where they're at. We're taking this guy here and we need to hook up our air compressor to it. So this one, I didn't have the right thing, so I made it. That's kind of my credo. But we just have a hose bib connection, a male, and then I put an air compressor fitting into it. That way I can put this together, and then I put myself together a little valve so I can control how much and how violent it gets. But to start off this whole process, before I did anything, go underneath and open up your low point drains on both hot and cold. Let everything come out, open the fixtures inside to relieve that suction on the plumbing system in your camper. And believe me, you'll be amazed at how much stuff just comes out of there on its own on gravity. That's the whole point. It's a low point drain. It's to get everything out of the bellies and the bows in there. And we get the rest of it out with air. Now, once you have the most of it out of your low points, go ahead and close those back up. Close the fixtures inside your camper and open just one at a time. Like do the hot on the kitchen sink, close it. Do the cold on the kitchen sink. And in between all of those, we're gonna come out here and give it a little, just a little bit of air. You know, you don't got to go crazy. I mean, this stuff is PEX, so you don't want to blow it apart. But either way, like I said, go to your kitchen sink, open the hot, blow some air through it, get everything out of that hot line. Open the cold, blow some air through it, get everything out. Do the same thing in the bathroom. Do the same thing in the shower. Do the same thing with the toilet. Anything and everything water related. Now that, for the most part, gets the water out of your lines, and the only thing we're left with is water in the P-traps. But that's where the antifreeze comes in. Once we run that through the fixtures, it'll fill up the P-traps and take care of all that. So now that we have our air, don't worry, I'll link a real one. They make real ones, but I didn't have one. I needed to do the job because it was like freezing and I had to do it. But I'll link a real one so you guys can do this a little less janky than me. Without further ado, let's get to the antifreeze thing. So we've gone over closing the valve for the suction side out of your freshwater tank, because we don't want to pull anything from the tank. I mean, even though it's empty at this point anyway, it won't do anything. But we need to close the freshwater inlet and open this line for the suction. We're simply going to put this hose into the antifreeze and then turn the pump on. And then this is going to pump this stuff all through the fixtures in the camper. So we put this hose in here, go inside, turn the pump on, let it prime, let it build pressure, and then just open one fixture at a time, hot, cold, and then that's pretty much what gets this thing rocking. But there's one more thing we need to keep in mind on the other side of this thing, and I'll show you what that is. Now, please excuse the lack of view. I've already been in here and I put all my crud back in here. Like, we got an air reel and enough tools to fix a Jaguar. But on the back of your hot water tank, there is a service loop that allows your water system to bypass the hot water tank instead of going through it. Otherwise, all that antifreeze would just pump right into the hot water tank. And that's just a whole bunch of wasted money. I mean, that stuff isn't expensive, but either way, we can bypass the hot water tank, and this thing isn't a concern because of one other thing. Welcome to the belly of your hot water tank. What we're gonna do here is remove the anode rod. This guy is either magnesium or aluminum or some other kind of sacrificial material that the calcium will eat this thing before rotting out the liner of your tank. Now, you can see here how gnarly and grody this thing is. This is from one season. I don't know, give or take 3-4 months. And even that whole time, this tank wasn't full. It's just, man, this is what you get from either city water or like going to different campsites or whatever. Just look at what this thing turned into after a couple months. In case you are wondering, this is an 1 1/16 socket. That goes right in the hole here, and you would not believe the junk that comes out of here. And by the way, while you have this thing out, it's a good idea to clean this tank out too. They make fancy wands that hook onto your garden hose, get in there, get all that sediment out. Don't worry, I'll link that thing too. But while you're doing this, it's a good idea to also open your T and P valve. That stands for temperature and pressure. So this thing lets off pressure in the event that it gets too high, or if the temperature gets too high, this thing will let off so your tank doesn't effectively explode. But by opening this thing, it relieves the pressure inside the tank, and this thing will drain like you wouldn't believe. And we get the added benefit of exercising this valve to make sure that it works. But now that we have our hot water tank bypassed, we have the freshwater inlet to the pump shut off, and we have our low point drains drained and once again closed, we can finally put that hose into the antifreeze and go inside and prime the pump. Sorry guys, I know I'm all over the place with this process, but like I said, I kind of already started it because I got caught off guard with a really cold night, so I just kind of had to do it. But yeah, we got the valve open here. Shove her in there. There we go. All the way to the bottom, so we make sure we got that. Now, let's go prime. Cool, now that we're finally inside, we get to do some button pushing. So, brief recap here, guys. You do not want to run that pump dry excessively. I don't know. It's a good idea to never run any pump dry, but for some circumstances, I digress. Do your best not to run that thing dry. So we have the freshwater inlet closed. We have the suction line for the antifreeze open. We have our low point drains closed after draining them. We have our lines blown out, which I'm sorry I didn't show you, but you guys can get the point. Put air in the line, water comes out the other side. You're smarter than that, I give you credit. We have our hot water tank bypassed, so we are not just pumping all of that antifreeze into the hot water tank. We have removed our anode rod, we have tested our T and P valve, and if you choose to, flush out your hot water tank through that anode port, which I strongly suggest. Like I said, I'll link all this crap, but push the button. You guys will be able to hear your water pump. It'll go all kinds of crazy noises until it reaches that prime. And then you can go through and start opening fixtures. Now, I doubt very seriously you guys heard that because it was difficult for me since the pump is under the bed. But you heard it build pressure and it finally stops when it hits that pressure switch. So the system is effectively pressurized, even though there's a bunch of air in the line. Now that we have everything pressurized, we can go around to the fixtures. Hot, open, and go until it's pink. Cold, do the same thing. We'll do that on all the fixtures. Now we simply just go through all the fixtures and cold, open, hot, open. Keep in mind, you have to keep your water pump on during all this so it actually sucks the antifreeze out of the tote back there. But yeah, cold, hot. Now you may get some burst of air because I mean it's pumping air out with it, but this also takes care of that P-trap problem I was talking about earlier. The antifreeze is going to push out the water that's stuck in the P-trap back down into your gray tank, and the antifreeze is going to take its place. So this takes care of everything. Now let's move into the bathroom. We're going to do this exact same thing here in the sink. Cold, hot, nothing fancy. But now let's go to the shower. So here I have one of the fancy RV heads. You just click it so it's on, and yeah, then we'll just move this to on, off in either direction. So cold, on, and same thing with hot. Sweet. Now let's move behind us to one of the most forgotten but most important things. Yeah, your crapper. Probably the #1 reason why you wanted to get an RV, so you could have that comfort of pooping at home without being at home. But we need to do the same thing because this thing works on water too. And not to mention, that seal there needs to stay wet throughout the wintertime so it stays good, fresh, and new. But same thing. We'll just open this up, pushes out a little bit of water or air in there. And then once it's closed, make sure you put a little bit of antifreeze on top of there. Just make sure that thing stays submerged. Trust me, this will make this thing last twice as long. So now that we're pretty well done in here, there's one last thing that I almost forgot about, but I'm sure that most of you do have. We're going back outside. Keep the water pump on. I'm sure you guys probably guessed that we're talking about an outside shower. The exact same thing. Turn it on. Do your cold, your hot. I know it's difficult to see because it's not in a sink or something, but trust me, it's pink. This thing's flushed. We are good to go. Now we can shut the pump off and get everything undone. Yeah. Now you guys can see here, I sucked through about 2 gallons worth of antifreeze. And honestly, like I said, this is like I don't know, $5.50 at my local hardware store. You can order it if you want to, but do not pay a dealership to do this. What's up, guy? How's you good, boo-boo? So now that we're done with all this stuff, just make sure you close the valve for the suction line on this thing, because chances are you'll probably forget about it next season and end up screwing yourself. But yeah, I mean, it's totally up to you if you want to open up the fresh tank again. I mean, I don't know, it couldn't possibly hurt, so let's just do that now so we don't forget about it. I mean, not to mention, it's just a good idea, so in the off chance there is any water still in there, it gives it room to expand instead of blowing up. And I don't know if you guys took note in here earlier, there's that suction strainer. Now's the time to clean it. Take the bowl off and there's just a stainless steel screen in there. Blow it out, maybe some brake cleaner or whatever. Make sure there's no crud in it, put it back in. Now's the time. Now we can finally put our junk back in here. Put all our fancy covers back in place. And try to effectively not strip all the screws. Oh, yep, that one's stripped. Let's see if we got better luck with this one. Oh, there's my man. What's up? You got a Band-Aid? My man. Every good dirt biker needs Band-Aids. Chicks dig scars. Do another lap, cowboy. Cool. Yeah. Now, let's try to remember how this Jenga game of junk goes in here. maybe, yes. Everyone signed, good?
Everyone signed? Yes. Good. On we go.
Nice, now let's go inside for a recap. Let me throw a little illumination on the situation here. Nobody ever just picks up a drill and doesn't do that. Anyway, brief recap. So, we drain the low points first, because why not? Get that crap out of there. I mean, I guess you really don't have to since we do the air thing. I digress. Low point drain, make sure they're closed, or else you'll just pump the antifreeze down on the ground. Drain your fresh water tank. Don't forget about that. I may have forgot to say that. But drain your fresh water tank. Make sure it's empty. So you have 3 drains underneath your camper. Low point, hot, cold, and fresh water dump. Dump them, then close them. Get inside and get your pump situated for RV antifreeze. On the other side, hot water tank. I know I didn't show it, I'm sorry, but there's so much crud in there and I'm on a limited timeline right now. But I promise you, on the back of your tank, there's an inlet and an outlet. And in between those two, there is just a loop with a valve on either side. You either shut that loop off, so water actually has to bypass or go through your tank, or you open that valve on either side, so it bypasses the tank and just charges the rest of the system. Super easy, couldn't be more convenient, as it were. Front of the hot water tank. Remove your anode because it's junk anyway, I guarantee it. For how bad house hot water tanks are, these ones are 60 million times worse. New anode rods are like 16 bucks for like a legit Suburban or Dometic one. Like I said, I'll link all this crap so you guys can get it if you're interested. Check your T&P valve on the hot water tank. Open that thing. It makes it drain faster anyway. It gets rid of that suction. So open it and then check it and make sure everything's working right. Once we have the hot water tank squared away, now you make sure that your antifreeze stuff is ready to go. Put the hose in there, or if you have to do the city water adapter thing, there's actually a tool for that too, in case you don't have that suction line on the pump. I'll link that for you. But now we're good to go inside. We got everything done outside, we're prepped, we're good with antifreeze. Turn on your water pump, charge it. You get that, no, she's good. Go to every fixture, cold, open, get the bubbles and run till she's pink. Hot, do the same thing. Bathroom, same thing. Any fixture you got, anything that runs water, do this same procedure. And don't forget the crapper. You know, I've run into this before where everybody does everything so well. You know, you blow out your lines, you antifreeze, they forget to do the toilet. And then leave yourself a nice cushion of antifreeze sitting on top of the valve. So not only does that create a vapor barrier, so, I mean, I don't care how much you flush your black tank, it still smells like poop. So if you put this liquid on top of the seal, it only helps everybody. Not to mention it keeps that seal wet. And that thing is a wet environment seal. It likes to be wet. It will last so much longer, and not to mention you just get that peace of mind that everything is good to go. Now, we're done inside. Keep your water thing, the pump, keep the pump on. Go outside and do any exterior fixtures. I guess it really doesn't matter in which order you do this. Just make sure that you remember to do it. So that outside shower, same thing. Get all that crap out of there. Once you're done, wrap it up, man. You're done. Good for you. Now, the only thing that I particularly have left to do, which seems to be a controversial topic, and I'd love to know your take on it, so by all means, please drop a comment and let me know what you think and which side of the fence you're on. To cover or not to cover? I know, this is a real Hatfield McCoy thing here. Some people are hard one way, hard the other, and you could not convince them otherwise. However, I try to overlap some of my technical knowledge, if you will, and I understand both arguments. Okay, you cover it, you protect it, you keep the elements off of it, everything lasts longer. You don't cover it because inherently a cover keeps in moisture and promotes mold, particularly on the interior. You know, if you guys have ever seen the inside of a camper and the walls are kind of like bumpy, they look like it has acne, you know, like you when you were 13, that's mold behind the wallpaper. And the same thing happens at the ceiling. It's just, these things are so cruddy. I mean, they don't breathe anyway, and then you're literally just putting cellophane over it and making it even worse. So I feel like I've found an awesome middle of the road. For those of you that don't know, I used to be a truck mechanic, like big trucks, semi-trucks, triaxles, stuff like that. So I have access to a tarp maker. I mean, by all means, you don't have to do this. Something that I had at my disposal. So I measured up the old girl, length and width, and I added 4 feet to either side, both of those dimensions, and a little bit for the hump of the air conditioner. But what I'm going to do is just get a good quality tarp and just put it over the top, overlap the sides by a couple feet, and then wrap like baling twine or string or something under the whole thing to keep it taut. That way, I'm protecting the most valuable thing in your camper. It's the roof, and I don't have snow sitting on there for 4 or 5 months here, beautiful Western Pennsylvania. We're keeping the UV from the sun off of it. We're keeping the wind off of it. I feel like this is a happy compromise. 90% of the sides are still open to promote airflow, so hopefully we don't have that moisture issue. But you still get the coverage because, man, if your roof goes, it's gone. It's kind of like if the chassis rots out in your car. There's no point in fixing it, just buy a new one. These things, if the roof goes, if it's more than a couple years old, man, I would just look at trading up. So do everything you can to protect this roof and prevent stuff from happening. So, like I said, drop a comment and let me know what you feel, but I think this is the happy medium. Get a tarp just big enough to cover the roof, and that's it. Let everything else ride, man. So I'm sorry, guys. I know this was a bit sporadic. I was a bit all over the place, but like I said, I got into a jam a week ago. You know, it just got cold here, like now. So I had to get my butt out here and blow those lines out. And it just happens today, I stopped at the hardware store and got some antifreeze. So I figured I'd bring you guys along for at least that portion of it. But honestly, this is not difficult whatsoever. Please do not be intimidated by this process. And if you own an RV, by all means, do this yourself. Because, dude, the dealership, do you think car dealers are bad? Dude, if you take your RV to the dealership for anything besides like a major repair like axles or chassis work or something, just take some KY with you, because it's, not to mention the quality of work that comes out of most of those places. Anyway, my opinion, but do all you can to do this stuff yourself. Have a little bit of pride in your work. And it's just be honest, this is building a skill set. You can use this stuff everywhere. There's so much residential stuff that carries on over to campers. It's cool, man. It's just, the more you know, the better off you are. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little thing and helped you do something by yourself. So hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.